Welcome to the deep dive. Today we are diving headfirst into Jane Austen's Pride and Prejudice.
One of my favorites.
You've given us a lot to unpack here, and I am more than ready to unearth some insights with your expert help. It's not every day we, get to dissect a classic like this.
Absolutely. And Pride and Prejudice, it's so much more than just a typical romance, isn't it?
Yeah.
We're going to be talking about social commentary, sharp wit, and characters that somehow still feel relevant, even over 200 years later.
It's wild, right?
It really is.
It's like she had a time machine. Speaking of time, let's talk about that famous opening line. It is a truth universally acknowledged.
Everybody knows that line.
Practically iconic.
Yes.
But our source points out the irony. Austen spends the entire book basically challenging that very idea about, marriage being like the ultimate goal.
Classic Austen, right?
Yeah, like, ha ha, fooled you.
Exactly. She sets us up with this premise that seems very straightforward. But marriage, about society, and then just massively unravels it all. It's brilliant satire.
Totally. And it all plays out in, against this backdrop of Regency England, where marrying well was like essentially a woman's only option. So much pressure. That kind of pressure cooker is where we meet our beloved Elizabeth Bennet.
Ah, Elizabeth.
Right.
The source describes her as sharp-tongued and fiercely independent. She is very quick to judge, especially when it comes to Mr. Darcy.
Oh, always.
But that's part of what makes her such a compelling heroine, I think.
Totally. She's smart, she's capable, but not perfect.
Yeah.
And I think that makes her relatable. We've all had those moments of misjudgment, I think.
Absolutely. And Austen really uses Elizabeth's flaws to drive the plot. Like, take her initial prejudice against Darcy, for example. I mean, it really blinds her to his true character and allows that charming but ultimately deceptive Wickham to gain her trust.
Wickham. Speaking of Darcy, he's a bit of a mixed bag at first, isn't he?
He is.
The epitome of a brooding romantic hero, but he comes across as so arrogant initially.
Oh, he does. And your source even, really highlights that initial awkwardness, that clash of Pride and Prejudice between the two of them.
Yeah.
As being super crucial to their development as characters.
Okay.
It's in the overcoming of those flaws that their relationship and they as individuals truly blossom.
Right. Remember that line? Tolerable, but not handsome enough to tempt me. Ouch. It's such a testament to Austen's skill that she can make us root for a character who stumbles out of the gate like that.
It's true.
Yeah.
And, that's part of what makes him so fascinating as a character. He's not your average, run-of-the-mill romantic hero.
No.
He has to earn Elizabeth's affection.
Right.
And I think more importantly, he has to overcome his own pride and prejudices to really deserve her.
Totally. Yeah.
Which makes for a much more interesting story, I think.
And it's that journey of self-discovery that I think makes Pride and Prejudice more than like just a typical love story. Our sources really go deep on Austen's genius for kind of weaving that social commentary right into this, at first glance, lighthearted romance.
Oh, totally. And she doesn't shy away from those expectations, on women, like that pressure to marry well and the importance of wealth and social standing. It's all there, right under the surface, all that witty banter and romantic tension.
It makes you wonder how people back then reacted to it. Like, was everyone in on the joke? Did they see that sharp critique? Or were they just like head over heels for the love story?
Right. That's what's so great about Austen. It works on like all these different levels. You can enjoy the romance, absolutely, but you can also appreciate like her observations on society, all those little ways she challenges the norms.
Like with that whole entailment system. The source mentions how that plot point shows just how few options women had back then. Elizabeth and her sisters are basically like trapped by this old system.
Exactly. It's this subtle thing, but it reminds you about these structures that control their lives. Austen's not hitting you over the head with it, but it's there in the background, just adding this extra tension to everything.
And she does it with such a sharp wit. Even when she's dealing with these heavy topics, there's a lightness. That sense of irony makes it such a joy to read.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of enjoyable, we have to talk about this whole like Darcy effect.
Yeah.
Our source mentions that Colin Firth moment, coming out of the lake. Talk about a pop culture moment.
Oh my gosh, I can picture it perfectly. But it's like more than just a handsome guy in a wet shirt. It totally changed how we see Mr. Darcy.
Right. It added a whole new, layer to him. And the source even says it redefined the romantic hero for like a whole generation. Makes you wonder if it was always there in Austen's words, just waiting for someone to bring it to life visually.
It's so interesting to think about. And While we're talking adaptations, the source mentions something about, like, Austen's own love life. Apparently, she may have had, her own experience with heartbreak.
It's all speculation, of course. But it adds a really interesting layer to her writing. Like, did she pour some of her own heartache and longing into, Elizabeth and Darcy? It's definitely possible.
It kind of makes you see her differently. Maybe even, like, more relatable, right? This literary giant dealing with the same ups and downs of love as everyone else.
It really makes you think about, even the most famous authors, they were human too. The same emotions, and all the complications that come with that.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's those like universal themes that really make Pride and Prejudice so enduring, so timeless.
It really is a story for the ages, but it does make you wonder what a modern day Pride and Prejudice would look like.
Oh, interesting.
Right. Like, would Elizabeth and Darcy be, sparring on Twitter instead of in these grand ballrooms?
I love that. Instead of handwritten letters, it'd be like carefully worded text messages.
Oh, yeah.
And maybe like some accidental likes on old Instagram posts,
Oh, the drama.
right?
And instead of a scandalous elopement, maybe like a viral TikTok or something?
Exactly. All the ways we talk to each other now, they might be different, but the themes, that miscommunication, the social pressure, trying to see past just appearances, that's all still so relevant.
It's like Austen, like, tapped into something essential about just being human, something that goes beyond time or technology.
Totally. Yeah, we're not navigating those strict social circles of Regency England, but we still deal with first impressions, societal expectations, finding the courage to get over our own prejudices.
100%. It really makes you appreciate Austen's, like, genius even more.
Oh, yeah.
To create something that connects so deeply across, different times and cultures. That's incredible.
Absolutely. Pride and Prejudice. It's not just, some charming romance. It's a sharp look at society, a timeless exploration of how we relate to each other.
Perfectly said. And that actually feels like a perfect place to wrap things up.
Mm.
Thanks for joining me on this deep dive into the world of Jane Austen.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's been so fun unpacking these insights with you.
Always a pleasure to talk, Austen.
And for you listening, we want to hear your thoughts. What modern twists would you add to Pride and Prejudice? Until next time, happy reading.